you. So, lovely audience. As you might have already realized, there are cards and pens lying on some of the chairs. Maybe for the audience further above, if you feel welcome to come downstairs also and grab some. These cards and pens are for you to take notes and to gather thoughts and feelings and to perhaps even share them in the end to reflect on our evening here today. We also have possibilities to actually engage with the storytellers and also to have a moment of reflection in the end. Our audience at home also feel welcome to just grab a pen and paper or to comment in the comment section of our live stream. For now, I want to start the session officially by sharing a quote. It goes as follows. Second stories are not the end goal, but they are the start of a conversation. And with that, I would like to welcome our first speaker of the evening, Maria Garcia Alvarez. She is our very own lecturer at the university back home, and she's a certified educator for sustainability at the Earth Charter, a Sustainable Development Solutions Network member, and a UN Habitat representative for Windesheim, our university. Everybody, please welcome Maria on the screen.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me because we were having some problems at the beginning hearing you guys. Greetings from the Netherlands, but I hope that today we are not connecting from any country or any nationality, but just from our hearts. I'm going to try to share a PowerPoint. I hope that works. Oh, it seems I'm not able to share. Let me try again. No, it's not possible. I think you're arranging that. Okay, let me know when I can try.
You can.
And well, I want to thank you, of course, my students, and really proud of you guys of what you achieved, because all these second stories started as a project inside of the university, and here we are now. But today I hope also not to enter as a teacher, in the sense that I'm not going to be telling you how to create wonderful stories. I think the PowerPoint is now at least visible somehow. I am here to talk about the power of storytelling, which I think we have abandoned or forgotten. But there's no society that we can find around this globe that we call home that does not use a form of the storytelling to convey their culture, to convey their history, their wisdom, their values, and after all, their evolution, their continuity of their own stories, of their identities. So storytelling has been powerful since humans start putting their footprint in this planet. I'm showing there a picture of a scanner because today, with the technology we have, we also know that storytelling has a physical effect, not only social and emotional. The scan that you saw before is from a neural coupling, meaning that we know when someone is listening to the story and the storyteller, they are activating parts in their brains, and they are able to create new connections with experiences and with their own ideas. That's what we call a neural coupling. But it's also a mirroring effect. So sometimes we have seen in the scanners that the listeners will not only listen to the story and create new connections, but sometimes they mirror the emotional connections of the brain of the other. And of course, it generates dopamine, which is also known as the happiness drug. And the brain is releasing dopamine constantly when the storytelling with the story has a balanced charge of emotional components. And while, of course, when we process data, a lot of parts of our brain are also operating. We know that when we're listening to stories, to good stories, a lot of different areas in the brain are connecting. And that is the beauty of our brain, right? When we make connections, when we activate connections about the different areas of the brain and engage in new processes of energy and creating new realities. So this is really important and interesting for us to know this physical effect of the storytelling. And why? Because these days, since the COP26 started, we have been listening to so many different stories. And especially today is really important for us as humanity, because probably we are in the moment that we are constructing together the plot of the biggest story we will probably all tell as humanity, especially to the generations to come. And here you have a basic plot diagram that we use in storytelling. Probably right now we are in this conflict inciting moment and the rise in action with different stories. And all the storytelling has a climax, a fall in action, and a resolution. And it's also in our hands, depending on the story we want to create, what the resolution will be. And at the moment, we have hearing all the data. We have the factual story. I choose this quote from James Gustav Speth, an American environmental lawyer and activist. He said, I used to think the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought with 30 years of good science, we could address those problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, apathy. And to deal with these, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation. And we scientists don't know how to do with that. Well, storytellers know. Storytellers have the power, as we have seen, the physical power to at least initiate new patterns in the brain, new connection, new transformation. And what we can do is to change the narrative. The two big narratives at this moment, and I think so far, for those of you in Glasgow following really close what is going on in the COP26, you have seen these two narratives. We have seen them in the press. We have the industrial growth narrative, business as usual. The system will heal itself. We can address some of the symptoms, of course, but we continue with consumerism. We continue with corporate domination. We continue with an incredible, no seen before concentration of power and wealth, and we continue with competition. This is a quite symptoms approach, unfortunately, is the favorite of all of our politicians. Of course, we have also the other narrative, the great unraveling narrative. This is a narrative of the agendas. The third agenda we have, the SDG agenda, but we had before the Millennium Development Goal agenda. We have the Agenda 21. This is not the first agenda, unfortunately, probably will not be the last one. This is also the narrative of urgency. We are in a turning point. It's now or never. We have to act as soon as possible. The list to do, actions to move to maybe other new forms of capitalism, but is still avoiding to address the big elephant in the room, which is economic growth. And as you all know, in the Sustainable Development Agenda story, we also have a goal number 8, economic growth. This is also a quantitative approach to the story that we are going through. But there's another option, and this is what I want to leave to you today, because I think it's not my story and my participation today, which is important. I think is the stories we're going to be listening today and sharing with each other. The problem with these two narratives so far is that the resolution is leading to the fear, is also shame for some people, and denial. And these are three emotions, and for Chinese medicine, it's so clear what they lead to a stagnation of qi. Energy will not move, and we do not move forward. And maybe what we need to start thinking about is to create a new narrative together. a narrative of much more reconnection, the great turning narrative, a moment of opportunity for us to rethink who we are in this system that we call Gaia, in this planet, in this home that we call Earth. Maybe another word is possible. And we have to start approaching this world from ecological wisdom, from understanding that we are only a really small element in this complex and beautiful system beyond the Earth, because Earth is also part of a bigger system. And maybe this narrative should be taken by you guys, the students, the young people, social movements. Maybe small scale change will have this bigger global impact that we're looking for and not global agenda can achieve. This is a moment for a new approach. We have a beautiful document. I'm not so, my students know I'm quite critical with the agenda, but we have this beautiful document. We launched it in 2000, the Earth Charter, that I think is the time is 20 years old, but beautiful still values approach to sustainability, and is the narrative that makes us home, that makes us part of this bigger system we belong to. So maybe it's time for a story of hope and a story of reconnection. And my students were saying at the beginning, let's start the conversation. Yeah, let's start a new conversation. Let's start a new conversation of hope, of reconnection, not only with each other, but with the planet, with the self, with the other, and with all the system around us, because it's a great moment and a great opportunity. So I hope that the stories that we're going to be hearing today are also for each of you a moment of inspiration and reconnection. So we'll leave it here because I think, as I said, the important part of the evening is to come, is the stories of the rest. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you, Maria, for once again highlighting the power of storytelling and the importance of storytelling. Now, before we start listening to the stories, we're delighted to have Valerie Adolf. Her work focuses on connecting people through mindfulness and conversation, and actually so much more than I could describe in a few sentences. So yeah, Valerie, thank you for taking the time to make everyone feel connected and feel open to listen.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very delighted of, sowing seeds of hope, and delighted of spreading second stories. You're doing really something wonderful with it. And I invite you now all in the room and online to get connected for a special moment, of listening, of connection, because every story is our story. It's not an individual story, it's the story of us all. And I want you to open your mind, open your heart, and listen in a way that is not just something else we just tickle and said, we done it. So just feel comfortable, each of you. And if you wish to close your eyes, you can close your eyes. And I invite you for a moment just to feel your feet on the ground, to get connected with the ground, with your feet, with the seat you're sitting in. And just take a moment of stillness, starting with yourself. We want to change something. We want to be strong. We want really to connect to each other, to open something new. So feel the support of the ground. Feel the touch of your feet. It might be warm, it might be cold, it might be just like it is. And imagine for a moment that you have roots that come out of your feet, and they go deeper and deeper into the earth. They connect to something deeper, the source, deeper than yourself, deeper than all of us. And imagine that through these roots, you can connect to the people around you, online, offline. You could just, through these roots, communicate with them. Tell them something, even if you don't know what it is now. Imagine that these roots root you on the earth, and connect you to people, plants, animals, to everything around you. Just to feel that togetherness, something that gives you stability, gives you hope, gives you a way forward and a communication with all of us. And be aware of this stability that it offers and generosity. And for a moment, pay attention to your legs, to your trunk, to you sitting, to your hands that connect. And one of the things that is so special about us, breathing, means that we can communicate not only through our feet and the ground, but also through the breath. Now I invite you to pay attention to your breathing, the way that the breath comes in and the way that it exits your body. And each time you breathe in, you imagine just you open up to yourself, to a new moment, to a new option. And each time you exhale, you just give into the room and to other people's the best of you, all you can give. That's your support, that's your contribution. And each time you breathe in, you just let everything in, everything around you, connecting to the differences we have, but at the same time being together. And each time you breath out, you just let out your friendliness, your will to engage, your will to something new. And each time you breathe in, you let in all the other lives around you, the stories, the experiences. And each time you breathe out, you commit to something bigger, a bigger context that you want to share. So your feet connect to the ground and your breathing connects to the other. And like this, we're weaving a connection for a heartful listening. Listening to the stories, to the experiences, to the courage that each of us had shown and is showing in the future. Like the skin of connection, togetherness, for better understanding, clarity, curiosity, and courage. And feel that if this skin is around us, it just helps us to do something new, dropping all the old things, being vulnerable, but at the same time give each other support and stability. And the next out breath, I invite you to open up again your eyes. And you might even like to look around you, look around the people you have on your sides. Feel the room, feel the earth. And allow yourself to get touched by the stories you will listen now to, and give all your support, all the holding the space for curiosity, compassion, and courage. And I invite now Kaluki to explain us the first story.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Kaluki Paul Mutuku, coming from Kenya. And I want to take you through a short journey, a journey to a magical place, a beautiful place, a place that needs love, a place where I call home, and a place where I'm doing works to make it belonging for me and for my future generations. And so that place is Kenya. And Kenya, it's beautiful, not because right now the environment is green, but because I see the opportunity that we have if we can only come together and restore our ecosystems. And my story rotates around restoration and what I'm doing to ensure that our forests, our lands are protected, and that young people and communities are centered around the protection of these natural spaces. So as I believe my speeches will be on screen, I want to just talk a bit around what I'm doing. So since 2016, I've been able to work with communities in Kenya through some of my organizations to lead on restoration from mangrove planting in Kenya's coastline, where we have so many poor communities, to leverage on the potential they have to invest in nature, to engage in coastal management of the resources, and therefore earning a livelihood out of that. I've also been able to work with groups inside of Kenya to lead on restoration and planting of crops that could help poor families access safe food, access water, and access indigenous crops that can help boost their health. I've been able to work with young people to actually create stories, stories of hope, stories of change, and stories that can determine our future. And so I present to you Bustani Gardens, a project that we've been working on to set up kitchen gardens in school and kitchen gardens in homestays, and also community gardens across communities in Kenya. The point being, when we engage in conservation education, we are not just engaging our communities from a theoretical perspective, we're engaging them from a practical perspective that people feel when they see, and they see when they act, and they act when they care. So through Bustani Gardens, which is, by the way, a Swahili word that translates to garden in English, we've been able to work with communities and school-going children to install food forests in schools and communities that will enable the communities to access safe food while learning about conservation, while learning about restoration, and while learning about the components of our environments, the components of ourselves. Right now, we've already implemented 5 projects across Kenya. We've been able to plant mangroves, like I said, in the Kenyan coast, and we've been able to start vegetable gardens and harvested several rounds with the kids and cooked in the schools. And I'm sharing this story, this magical story, because I believe stories are what shape humanity, and stories are what brings us together today. We are here because we want to hear each other out. We are here because, to me, I believe Bustani Garden is a story that can give someone here some hope. Because I believe if we give each other a listening ear, then we can save humanity, we can save our species, and we can save nature. So I know I have 10 minutes, but I want to stop here, hoping that my story can inspire someone and that we can come together in solidarity to support one another and to create the a complete story, because a single story, like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie says, is dangerous. And it's dangerous because it's not complete. A single story only tells a particular version of the whole. So if we come together, you hear me, I hear you, we create that complete story that then makes us the one human species that we need to be, that connects us to nature, who is the mother of life and the giver of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaluki, for your very inspiring story. I want to give you the space now, people sitting in front of their screens, but also people sitting just here in the audience, and also us, of course, to take a moment and reflect, take a moment to write down your thoughts, to talk to your neighbor, or to just think about what connected you to Kaluki's story.
So is there someone who would like to share their thoughts with us? Well, I can start. I think I just resonate a lot with your story, as what you said. I hear you, you hear me. We often forget to just listen, and especially after the meditation with Valerie, I felt very, very touched before you even started talking. So I feel like I even listened to you before you started talking, and that's something special that we often forget in our everyday lives. So thank you.
Thank you.
So now I would like to give the words to Teresa from Singapore. She's joining online today, and it's 2 a.m. So we are very proud of her that she's joining in the middle of the night to tell us her story.
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. Hello, my name is Teresa. I want you all to imagine your relationship with the environment as a single color. What color would it be? A fiery volcanic red? A sweet honey bumblebee blue? Or that particular lemon yellow of the straw-headed bulbul? For me, my defining color is, I don't know. I still find it impossible to see one consistent color flowing from me. Does anyone know what I mean? When it comes to something you love, do you find yourself feeling too much, thinking too much? Although that is how I would define climate anxiety for me, I hesitate to call this same feeling a universal experience, since that may possibly linearize and whitewash the multifaceted story that each individual possesses. We each hold a unique relationship with the environment, and we may have learned about the climate crisis differently. Some of us associate it with a traumatic experience. Some of us remember it taught in YouTube videos in an air-conditioned classroom. But no matter the setting, every individual's experience of climate anxiety is valid and should not be trivialized in any context. So, how did my journey begin? When I was 17, I began subscribing to The Guardian's Green Light, a weekly environmental newsletter. And it felt like when no one on this planet understood me, I took quiet refuge on the words on screen that this writer understands me. Something that once felt so obscure and so unspoken had actually always been a reality. But reading more climate news and understanding about the many paradoxes of this crisis can also be dispiriting. And it hurt even more to see it unfold coincidentally in real life. For the first time in all the 18 years of my life, the forest next to my home started to clear. For housing, it was said. Every day I came home to hear one more tree snapping, which has the uncanny similarity to the sound of breaking bones. It was increasingly difficult to focus on studying at home, and with the impending stress of A-levels, I knew I had to lie to myself. So I began coming home late so that nightfall would shut the shattered landscape away from me. Let me pretend that it's still there. Let me hold on to some kind of false hope because I can't take reality anymore. What's the purpose of channeling so much energy to protect a home that's already broken beyond repair? What's the point of advocating for protection when it's going to be damaged sooner or later anyway? At this point, I would like to read a poem that I wrote when I was at one of my especially down points, thinking about the state of the world today. You are not a number. I want to hold your hand, cry with you as the sky tears asunder, raining bullets and viruses by the thunder beat. I want to tell you, you are not a number. We have the same eyes, same hair, and same laughter. Except you've got battle scars in Mozambique, Afghanistan, and Yemen. I want to hold your hand, cry with you as the sky tears asunder. You deserve good food, a full breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But instead, you face droughts, must eat man's leftovers. I want to tell you, you are not a number. You have world-class ideas and visionary desires. So why can't the ventilators and oxygen tank go on working? I want to hold your hand, cry with you as the sky tears asunder. You tried to help your family escape the land of horrors by braving the winds and the oceans before me, but you were captured. I want to tell you, you are not a number. It's so difficult. Every day you face old fears, new fears. It's so difficult. But oh, to hold on to your innocence and goodness. I want to hold your hand, cry with you as the sky tears asunder. I want to tell you, you are not, never a number. And so it hurts when you're struggling to come to terms with environmental destruction, knowing that this is a pain that doesn't go away. This is a storm that will not pass. And it hurts when people around you don't understand and you ask yourself, why am I like this? And it hurts the most when people invalidate your feelings sometimes. Some have said things like, why is this girl wasting so much time? Shouldn't she be spending her time doing something more useful like studying instead of worrying? And so feeling that no one around me would really understand, I turned to online spaces, but nothing really worked. I tried speaking to someone on BetterHelp, but gave up after the website asked for money. I read online that if you force a smile for 1 minute every day, you will eventually cure yourself of such intense sadness. And now I learned that that's called toxic positivity. So I just kept sinking deeper into this abyss. Sometime that year, the environmental movement in Singapore was also taking a steep turning point. No longer was it about echoing the 3 hours and turning off the lights. It was about being critical of what our country had done and where we were now heading. But knowing that the narrative was shifting wasn't enough. There was still no one I felt I could talk to. On social media, there were climate activists that seemed to know everyone who had a strong support network of advocates. And I wish that could be me too. While still grappling with that constant feeling of intense sadness, learning about how climate issues intersect with other social injustice issues was one key turning point in my journey. Knowing that the work we do is to resist the structures that are creating stark inequalities and injustices for the people here and now. That the work we do is really a movement for international peace. And so, despite feeling isolated, this comforting thought helped me through that period. What eventually did help me also get through was making friends with people in the climate scene after joining several climate groups and going to university. After holding up for so long and thinking that I was all alone and that nobody cared, in these new spaces, I realized that there were so many people that cared as deeply about it as I did. And that was so comforting to know. And in these new places, I was given more avenues to speak my mind. And in my university course today, I study environmental and political science, which also makes me happy because it was now justified for me to think about these issues that I loved all the time, which I had to force myself and suppress myself not to do back in junior college. An urge that had kept suffocating for so long was finally out. And so, with this outlet, I found my voice. I stopped stressing so much. And I saw a fog of darkness lift away and myself change. I was less timid, less worried about other people's perceptions of me, and best of all, I felt so free. This, I think, is the stage of acceptance. So here's a poem of hope titled, When You Look Up Into the Sky, What Do You See? It is a simple poem bustling with life, with the natural elements that I hope are still plentiful when we grow old. Today, at COP, we are collectively working to preserve these beautiful spaces that we all have a right to live in. When you look up into the sky, what do you see? I'm counting stars when sunlight gurgles through the air like sizzling embers from a phoenix that is rising again from the ashes of the last forest fire. Let my summer crawl out of hibernation. Can we be peeling away the years of decay? Bring back birds and bees to this mountain. Say hello again to peaceful, happy, carefree days. May the climate justice movement grow ever bigger. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for sharing your story and for, also for being so vulnerable with us. I think that's really, really brave. And here again, we want to ask the audience if you would like to share your thoughts on the story, or if you have any questions or comments for Teresa, and we can for sure go in conversation together. Otherwise, you can also just think about it again and see what resonated with you. See if you want to make some notes for yourselves. And then Teresa, thank you. I think thank you for sharing your story. I think it resonates with a lot of people, a lot of activists, a lot of people that deeply care for the planet. And thank you for sharing your story with us tonight.
I would actually still add something to Teresa's story, because I personally also feel this whole concept of climate anxiety is really universally relatable, to some to a certain extent stronger, to others less strong. But I think it is really something that we just live with in this age today. And we also have dogs in the audience, by the way, for the people at home. No, I wanted to share, because yesterday in one of the sessions that was also happening here, one event, we also heard about an organization that I found really powerful and inspiring. It's called Forces of Nature. And it is an organization that takes this concept or this vulnerability and actually empowers people through it. And I find that so inspiring. And I'm really, really impressed, Teresa, also by you. I find it really brave of you to share this story of climate anxiety so openly, because I really feel like it's not being talked about enough still. And I think you really are a great role model in this, for just showing your vulnerability and how strong you grew through it. So thank you so much.
And then Joseph, are you here with us? We have Joseph also joining online. And I think Joseph can just best introduce himself and talk about himself and share his own story. Feel free to start.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oops. Here. So, yeah, can we see my screen?
Yes.
Can you see my screen? Yeah. So, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Joseph Olaoluwa. I'm an analyst from Lagos, Nigeria. I've been writing for over 5 years now, and the matter of climate change is very important for me. I like to say that our world is under threat, And for some of us who live in Lagos, far away from here, we've been experiencing some of this effects of climate change, and that's why I put together the presentation. It's like a PowerPoint, a photo slide showing you the effects, the visual effects of climate change, the effects of it. And I'll use my state, my from Lagos as a real life depiction of how this thing is impacting us. The story I did for Spread Stories is renewable energy. Renewable energy, as the world gets greener, Nigeria is still behind. And now the essence of this story is to give you a case-by-case presentation of what happened to me some months ago in Lagos, Nigeria. This is Lagos, for many of us, Africa, Nigeria. Lagos is one of the biggest cities in Africa. Currently, the population of Lagos is about 23.5 million people. And in a few years' time, that population can double by 2000. My city, country, has a lot of diverse people here. And as of last year, the revenue that was generated in Lagos was over 400 billion as of 2020. 2021, first quarter of this year, we've had close to 200 billion just in the first quarter alone of this year, to show how vibrant the city is. But as beautiful as you can see from the screen, how lovely the city is. This city is under threat. Go Climate Central, you can see that it says low-lying coastal cities will submit by 2,100. And even before that, the Nigerian. And this is very important because Lagos is a coastal city. It's been experiencing heat waves, rising sea levels, and heavy rainfall. And but above all, it's also that people have been glossing over generally unimportant. But something changed in 2021. As you can see from this there, we see that several houses.
Sorry to interrupt you. Would you mind turning off your camera? Because sometimes you're a bit interrupted, so maybe it helps if you turn off your camera for the sound.
Okay, is this okay? Is this okay?
Yes, I think so. I hope so. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. So exactly in July 2021, Lagos was heavily flooded after rains last week. Personally, my own self, I was stuck. I was stuck in traffic for hours trying to get home. There were rising sea levels, like you can see in this picture here. People trying to get home, but they couldn't get home. Cars getting stuck. This is an area view of Lagos at the time. Lots of flooding for a week in July. This happened this year, and this made me go on the. I picked for Spread Stories. Energy Nigeria is still left behind, to see if truly the country and the state are doing enough to make sure that something like this does not become a regular occurrence where I live in. And so I try to explore my story from an aviation perspective to see if airlines are using sustainable aviation fuel. Now, aviation fuel is actually what we should be using instead of fossil fuels are not good for our climate. Part of the reasons why we'll be experiencing some of these effects of climate change, like in Lagos flooding, for instance. And so I try to far, while I spoke to embraced sustainable aviation fuel, unlike Air France, KLM, or Emirates. And so it's sort of dragging us behind when we should be going ahead, which is the theme of the story I did for Spreadshirt. And I in which I feel that's something that we should do better as a nation. And
sorry, Joseph, could you please repeat the very last bit?
Yeah, so I said that. So I said that I realized that Nigeria is not for mistakes. I would like to say that flight starts online air travel estimated at 90.
Okay, thank you, Joseph, for sharing your story. I'm really sorry, but we can't hear you anymore.
Sorry,
Living wasted.
Yeah, Joseph, we're really sorry. It's really difficult right now to understand you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but really, really cut off, sadly.
Can I go again? Can I go again?
Yeah, I think now we can hear you. Can you try it again?
Okay, so like I was saying that an online travel starts agency, flight start estimated at 90,000 flights go on daily. And if those kind of flights go on daily, they burn about 740 million gallons of fuel. And it is not so good for our climate. And so based on that, I found out that Nigeria was not ready for sustainable aviation fuel. But while I would like to raise that issue and also come to the end of my presentation, while I was doing the story and checking Nigeria, comparing it to other countries of the world, there was an argument that resonated very strongly in the piece. And that was why I'm putting this slide here, having renewable energy, green, or having combustion, having fossil fuel. And one of those experts was saying in an argument, saying that other nations of the world are still using coal, still using crude oil, still using fossil fuel. So why is Nigeria so much in a hurry to move ahead of all of this? And so this is a question that he requested that I bring to presentation. We should deliberate and look at the importance. And well, I try to let him understand that our world is under threat, and if you don't do anything about it, we will be the ones to suffer some of these consequences. And so this is an appeal to everyone, to my President Muhammad Buhari in Lagos, in Nigeria, and also to everyone, every nation of the world, every person here. We are all connected. That we should try and continue this message of climate change. Just try and continue this work to make our world sustainable and green. You can see here in this last slide that everyone is smiling, everyone is happy. This is kind of what we want: a green world where we are not scared of heat waves, rising sea levels, or flooding. And while we have debates, doubts, and counter debates, the goal is for us to have a sustainable life, a life that keeps on giving and is important and helpful for our future generations. And so here I would like to bring it all to a close, and really appreciate the team, Spread Stories, for letting this happen, and team, everyone here, Teresa, Maria, Valerie, Leah, and everyone. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Joseph, for sharing your Nigerian perspective. I think it's so important to have people tell their stories, especially people who can't be present here at the COP and physically. So yeah, I appreciate your appel to Nigeria, but also to the world. Thank you, Joseph. So yeah, maybe if you still want to take some notes or reflect on it, on Joseph's story, take a minute. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for putting this on. Thank you very, very much for everything you're doing. Joseph, does that do anything? Can you hear anything through the microphone? No. What? Yeah, that does something? No.
No.
Joseph, thank you for your story. I'm from New York City, newly in New York City, and the map, there's something called "This place will be underwater." It's a like sticker and just image thing in New York City and somewhere else of what parts of the city will be underwater. New York City, millions, like where your presentation was on, and that's by 4 degrees, and where we will for sure be by the end of the century with our current projections, and those all projections before now have been blown right through. So what is happening there is coming for everyone. It is already happening for so many people. And I just thank you for sharing what's happening there, because this is, like your presentation has been, how we do something about it. We just need to talk about this 1,000 million more times than we are, because it's horrible. It's horrible, horrible, horrible. So thank you so much for speaking to it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your thoughts. I didn't get your name, but I think we all resonate with what you said. Yeah, last but not least, Raki, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, organization, for hosting this event here. But in particular, of course, Lina, Leah, and Valerie for making this possible. And since day one that we have met at the university in the Netherlands, where I'm based, I became part of your amazing and important project, Spread Second Stories. And I'm really pleased to be here. My name is Rakiap, and I'm a so-called indigenous climate change activist from West Papua. Before I start my pitch/presentation, I want a short introductions with you audience here in the room, but also those at home. Just write it down. Can I see hands from those who are afraid about the climate crisis and worried about the climate crisis? Can I see hands? And of course, I see almost all hands, if not all hands, going up. Can I see hands once again for those who are willing to do something but doesn't know specifically where to start or how to create change? Can I see hands? I see like the half of the room, the arms going up. Who of you have ever heard about West Papua? Can I see hands? I think half of the room. That's interesting. Who of you have heard about the indigenous perspective on climate change? Something less than half. Interesting. So this is why I'm pleased to be here representing the people of West Papua as the spokesperson of Free West Papua campaign, which is one of my hats. I fled my home country, West Papua, which is the western half of the island of New Guinea, for those who doesn't know it, right above Australia. And it is the world's largest tropical island, housing the second/third largest rainforest in the world after the Amazon and the Congo Basin. So those who wanted to fight climate change must understand what is happening on the front line, right? That should be a logic thing. As a matter of fact, what I found out the last 3 years that I've been active as a indigenous climate change activist in the Netherlands is that green institutions, big environment organizations, green political parties doesn't know what is happening in West Papua, in the Netherlands. And why is this relevant? Because West Papua was a former Dutch colony. So they should know what is happening there. For if you care about biodiversity, forest protection, ecosystem restoration, that should be a logical thing. But the fact is that my story shook them. And this problem is this deadly silence, as that's described. In this deadly silence, the climate crisis could occur and is still happening on indigenous lands. If I may pick out one outcome of the UN IPCC, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which state that just 5% of world's population exists of indigenous peoples, such as those in West Papua, have preserved more than 80% of world's remaining biodiversity. This is a fundamental outcome. If you put another outcome beside it, that 96% of world's deforestation due to coal, mining, cattle, and so forth happens on the same crucial indigenous lands as well. You have these two fundamental outcomes. The most effective, just, and cheapest climate solution would be protecting the lives and rights of indigenous peoples. It's that simple. But exactly this single way narrative on climate solutions, ecosystem restoration, biodiversity protections without the most important stakeholders, the indigenous peoples, is why this climate crisis could occur. And my story basically started the moment that Indonesian special forces assassinated my father, 4 months before I was born. Because after West Papua was a Dutch colony, they prepared us towards independence, which didn't happen. Indonesia took over with the support of the United States and the United Nations and the Dutch government, signing an agreement where our sovereignty were handed over without the consultation of the indigenous peoples of West Papua to the Indonesia we know today. And this is an interesting part you should know about this blue and green zone talks, promises, which, for example, this big news that the world leaders wanted to, stop all deforestation by the end of 2030, right? We should cheer. How are you going to do that without having the most important stakeholders sitting on the table who've managed to save Earth's lungs and biodiversity, 80%, the indigenous peoples? How are you going to do that without making it non-binding? Okay, the problem is clear. So the most important stakeholders are not sitting there. But there's a way out. Just checking the time because I can talk a lot. Yesterday, I had the privilege to stand on the stage of the Fridays and Future protest next to big speakers such as Greta Thunberg and Michaela and much other indigenous leaders on the stage. It was amazing. And why I strongly believe in storytelling is that I've realized so much change from a humble position in the Netherlands. I'm not an academic yet, but how, knowing that this story is so powerful, I've mobilized students, political activists, Extinction Rebellion, building forces to bring forward the story that can save the Earth. And West Papua, housing the world's largest, is part of the world's largest tropical island, housing the third largest rainforest, is a frontline area with one of the most unique land and marine biodiversity. But once the home of the indigenous West Papuans, today become the home of world's largest gold mine and second largest copper mine, owned by US and Australian copper mine. BP, with one of its largest LNG projects, gas fields, and palm oil companies destroying our ancient lands. The root causes of the climate crisis is very visible in West Papua. Colonialism, capitalism, and racism against people of color and indigenous peoples. These root causes have brought us to this moment, that 4.6 billion years of life to just 10 years to prevent irreversible destruction of Earth's ecosystem. This is where we have to reflect on what does innovation and development means. The people who know, who can take the lead are the indigenous peoples. And we've done that by launching our Green State vision by the indigenous government in waiting in West Papua. You can visit it yourself. www.greenstatevision.info, and see how we are willing to change the world and lead the way out of the climate crisis. So to close my words, I want you to believe in yourself, because story change can create system change. So having these 3 young leaders here besides me make me very proud, because they have shown you, and if not, they have let you experience how stories can make you think. And I hope, and hopefully also, that one of these stories, if not all these stories, will encourage you to tell a story yourself in your own community, because that is what Hive did. The last Corona pandemic year, it was a top year for our campaign, because I had a lot of Zoom calls at home where I had the opportunity to share this story, to make them think that you are not powerless, because everybody can share a story with your kids, with your colleagues, with your fellow students, and you can create, institutional change. That's what I have done with our campaign across the Netherlands and now starting around the world. We are no victims. The Pacific Islanders who are facing this sea rising level, islands are sinking. Their slogan is, "We are not sinking." They are new climate leaders, bringing in new narrative and stories that we can encourage each other to understand the urgency of climate crisis, that it's not something far away, it is happening right now. It's about colonialism, it's about capitalism, it's about racism, and ignoring stories that matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you so, so much, Raki. I always feel so inspired by your way of storytelling and by the way you engage the audience. And I don't know, at least I really resonate, and you bring along so much hope and determination to fight for your purpose. And I really love to see that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then again, as you might expect, we want to give you the opportunity if you want to share your thoughts or have a question for Raki now that he's here. I don't know if there's anybody that would like to ask a question.
I see a hand.
Yes, I also see a hand.
Feel free to come and join us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, if you feel comfortable, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much for that story. I'm here because I'm very curious, and I saw that there was a press conference for people from West Papua in connection with the law against ecocide. And I'm here partly because I'm a great advocate for that and hope that it will show a lot of solidarity for Earth defenders on the front line, such as yourself, which will in fact make it a crime to destroy the environment. And I wondered what your thoughts are on that theme.
Thank you so much for your question. To be specific, I'm one of the ambassadors of Stop Ecocide Change the Law in the Netherlands myself. And we are working very close to them. And, one of the lead initiative namers, besides the late Polly Higgins, was at our launch of the Green State Vision as panel member, because we know what is happening in West Papua is ecocide by these great corporations, destroying in first place human lives, our culture. And if our culture and the human will disappear, science have shown that environment will disappearing as well. So it goes hand in hand with our campaign. And the power of collaborating, building alliances, is exactly where these corporations are afraid of in this government. So yes, of course, we are supporting the Stop Ecocide campaign, and I hope the people at home will follow it as well. Yeah, I don't think I can add anything more.
Thank you. I'm delighted to hear that. And Polly was a great friend of mine. So yeah, I look forward to the momentum of that becoming a reality.
Me as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So hello everyone. Thank you so much for your story. I am following the YouTube feed. So we have a question from YouTube,
Please.
From Jason Platt, which asks, where did your passion come from and why?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Well, it started very late because I forgot to mention that when I arrived in the Netherlands as political refugee, I was the youngest of 4 brothers with my mom alone, coming from a faraway country. My mom had, of course, a trauma, my brothers as well. So I grew up in the streets between the boys who were just hanging around. So this is why I encourage students. I'm not an academic yet, as I mentioned before, but I become a change maker because I've experienced what change one individual can make. For example, meeting our independence leader, Benny Wender, who said, you are gonna be the new ambassadors for your people. Just by walking and protesting. And that is the lesson, the revolutionary lesson of making change. We feel how it is losing your culture, your family, my personal life, losing my father. But the fire of understanding that he's here. And all those victims in West Papua of more than 500,000 are here as well. And all those indigenous leaders, this is their story as well. So I walk never alone, nor do you if you share this story. And walking that way, believing that telling a story can inspire people and seeing it happen, students coming alive, doing their part, other students as well, is the momentum we create together. And if you've done that yourself, you will see the hope and the fire which will ignite in yourself as well. So please do try that and see what will happen, how it not will only change your life by being a voice for other one, but it will change a lot of people in your community, in your city, in your country, and in the world someday. Thank you so much for the question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Our last storyteller unfortunately can't be here right now, but he recorded a video for us. It's Jason. Jason's from Massachusetts, and yeah, he can't be here live, but he created a platform called Climate Stories Project, and that platform, and on that platform, he collected climate stories, and that are also personal stories, people that share their stories. And he shares now his story with us, and in the story he will also explain how he formed or how he created that platform. So yeah, that's our last story for tonight.
Hi, I'm Jason Davis, and I'm the director of Climate Stories Project and musician. I'd like to thank Leah and Spread Second Stories for the chance to share my climate story with you. In February of 2020, right before the world went off the rails, I rode my bicycle along the former railroad bed turnpike.
In front of my house. I remember connecting the dots between my own experience of extreme heat and the growing news coverage of the greenhouse effect and global warming. A few years later, I became obsessed with music, and I forgot about my environmental concerns. However, my childhood preoccupation with climate change came surging back during my first year studying jazz performance in college, when a viral infection damaged my hearing and made it temporarily impossible to play or listen to music. All of a sudden, my career goals and personal identity fell apart. In this fragile state, I realized that if my sense of self could so suddenly dissipate, maybe the seemingly sturdy world around me could crumble too. During this dark time, I started to remember my deep childhood connections to the New England seasons. I remembered barreling thunderstorms sweeping away the stagnant late August air, the first tendrils of frost appearing on the grass in October, the play of weak sunlight during short December afternoons, and the riot of new life bursting forth in mid-April. I remembered childhood days, walking out onto the ice on Walden Pond in Concord in January, my breath coming out in clouds, snot freezing in my nose, and I marveled at the glassy solidity below my feet. Small bubbles and cracks were suspended in the ice above the inky darkness of the lake. It was winter, cold and unapologetic. I found solace in the fact that artists and musicians have always been attuned to the natural world and seasonal changes. Vivaldi and the Four Seasons, of course. Beethoven's Pastoral Symphony took on a new meaning for me. Beethoven composed his musical portraits of birdsong and crashing storms when his hearing had largely deteriorated. I realized that seasons have artistic power. Composer Igor Stravinsky describes the genesis for his masterpiece, The Rite of Spring, as the violent Russian spring that seemed to begin in an hour and was like the whole earth cracking. The New England spring may be somewhat less violent, but no less dramatic. The gradual brightening of the mornings, the unfurling of cinnamon ferns, and the return of the rich smells of the living soil. Much of this seasonal drama comes from anticipation of changes to come. Henry David Thoreau, who lived in a small cabin at Walden Pond in the 1840s, understood this sentiment intimately. He wrote, "At the end of winter, there is a season in which we are daily expecting spring, and finally a day when it arrives." He also notes, on the 13th of March, after I had heard the bluebird, song sparrow, and redwing, the ice was still nearly a foot thick. How would Thoreau respond to an unfrozen Walden Pond in February? Dismay over disrupted seasons is now a reliable but unwelcome companion during the summer months as well. My discomfort is not just with the endless sweltering days, but with unusual weather patterns in this most seasonal of climates. What happened to the barreling thunderstorms that would sweep away the stagnant air of late July? Now, weak rains patter to the ground, or tropical deluges leave the air as sodden with moisture as before. It's as if the drama has been sucked out of summer. So much of the angst about climate change is from well-justified fears of threats to livelihoods, health, and property, ruined sea ice, failing crops, and flooded neighborhoods. Perhaps I'm speaking from a position of privilege, but what about the impact of fractured seasons on our psyches? How can we orient ourselves in a world where the seasons can no longer be counted on as a source of emotional sustenance and stability? Despite my strong feelings of grief from the wrenching changes underway, and despite my deep anger at fossil fuel companies and politicians for their cynical efforts to forestall climate action, I'm doing what I can to forge a more positive future. Over the past 7 years, for my storytelling initiative Climate Stories project, I've listened to people from around the world share their personal stories about the climate crisis. Ecologist and author J. Drew Lanham told me how climate change is pushing ecosystems of the South Carolina Piedmont closer to the edge. Mi'kmaq community member Clifford Paul spoke about how indigenous cultural knowledge is facilitating adaptation to shifting climate regimes in Cape Breton. Alaskan nature writer Mary Beth Holloman shared her love for the disappearing glacier she's known from Prince William Sound. I've learned far more about climate change, what it feels, looks, and sounds like through listening to people's voices than I have from any intergovernmental panel on climate change report. Sharing their stories on climatestoriesproject.org and leading climate storytelling workshops for schools, organizations, and local governments gives me hope that I can help participants and audiences connect with climate change on a personal level and place climate storytelling in the center of societal and policy responses to the climate crisis. Perhaps as a way to heal the trauma from my ruptured adolescent plans for a music career, I also write and perform music that features people's recorded climate stories, their connections to their home places, their emotional responses to the changing climate, and their convictions to forge a positive future. A recent piece of mine is The Council of Trees, which features author and playwright Jessica Lind Peterson's words about her love for Minnesota forests, as well as her deep unease with the speed at which they are changing. She describes how she left her house in the Twin Cities at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic to settle with her family into a trailer on a lake in the woods of northern Minnesota, an area where she spent her childhood summers. Based on my own disorientation with the warping of New England seasons, I relate to Peterson's reflection on the increasingly off-kilter seasons of northern Minnesota. She says, "There's a weird edge to each season that feels unfamiliar. Lakes freeze later and thaw earlier, birds fly back sooner. Instead of steady rainfall in the spring and summer, we are seeing fewer, more devastating storms." I also connect with her discordant mix of emotions about personal responsibility and the shameful lack of action by political leaders. She says, "After all the harm we have done, I have a hard time being optimistic. I feel responsible and sad and anxious for the future. It doesn't seem that our leaders care that we are killing the very planet that sustains us. I don't know what could be more important than saving it." A question looms low on the horizon like an August thunderhead. How do we find our center in a world that is rapidly changing? Right now, I don't know the answer. However, I do know that joy is still possible in our fractured world, even if it lasts 5 seconds biking in the windstream of a Cooper's hawk.
Yeah, I think Jason just really shows with his platform that listening is what makes climate change real. Listening to real climate stories and people who are acting upon it, who are trying to do better. And I think we can all learn from that. This was the last story for tonight. If I can just speak for myself, I feel very inspired. I think my whole body is shaking. So sorry if my words sound very weak, but I feel connected to people from all over the world, people from Singapore, people from Nigeria, people from the US, people here sitting. And I think I just want to pass the word to Valerie now. I think she will ground me as at least, and all of us.
I'm impressed, but I just invite you to keep a moment of silence. And again, just connect to your feet to the ground, because it's so easy that we want to jump up, we want to scream, we want to do something quickly. And I think the importance is just getting rooted, feeling the feet on the ground. You might even like to put your hand on your chest and just feel for a moment. And if you close your eyes, you could just remember the feelings of each of the speakers, of Kaluki, talking about the green treasure farms, talking about the school gardens in Kenya, remembering Teresa and her need to fight the climate anxiety. Talking, Maria saying we need a new narrative, take the opportunity to change and to find something new together. Remembering Joseph and the terrible loss through the flood, and wanting really this sustainable new world. wanting really people to come together to bring this new sustainable world. Remembering Raki and really saying we want this indigenous wisdom that is needed for the future of the rainforest. Remembering Jason and all these climate stories he's bringing together with all the pain, with all the need, with all the music and the season changes that he remembers. And now for a moment, just feel your heart. Feel how much all these stories were touching you, making us shake, wanting maybe to, to scream out, to cry, but at the same time feeling that there's something beating inside. These emotions that want us to lead. Feel the imprint. Feel what it left inside of you. Feel the insight. There might be something that was revealed for you that you haven't seen before. Something calling you. Feel in this heartbeat what you want to take with you. What has to change now. And you can change it and you can bring it with you into your life. Feel this heartbeat full of hope at the same time with all these overwhelming emotions. And if you could give it one word, one emotion, one image, or something you really want to express, what would it be? And remember, you still have these roots that are going down, deeper down into the earth, and that are connecting you to the others. And we still have this skin that is bringing us together. So your heartbeat is communicating to the other heartbeat. And your strength, as Raki said, is the strength of the others. And our narratives are able to create a new narrative, a common narrative. So your contribution can be, if you open up again your eyes, look at the others, look at the inspirations, the difference, but at the same time, the hope, the strength, the voluntary act to do something new. And if you have this card still with some space in front of you, just write down this one word you would like to bring to the others and to your life tomorrow. And please share these words now with Valerie, Leah, and Lena so that they can call it out.
Is there anyone who would like to share? Urgency, yeah. Justice, yes. Love, yes. Conviction. Connect, yes. I wrote down exactly the same thing, connect. Awareness, yes. Guilt. Yeah. Change, yeah, great. I have hope.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for this moment of connection, of this moment of listening and sharing. And thank you to all our storytellers who joined, who were here physically, who were joining online. Thank you for Maria who joined us with a pitch on the power of storytelling, as we all felt it today. Thank you to Valerie, who really grounded us, and thank you to Kaluki and Raki, who are present here physically. Thank you to Joseph from Nigeria. Thank you to Teresa from Singapore. Thank you to Jason, who joined from the US. And thank you also to our volunteers who supported us and yeah, made this possible.
Thank you all.
And a big thank you to SGI, who gave us the space on a Saturday evening. We feel very honored. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much for coming here, for being here with us, for sharing this incredible time with us. And we hope there are some new inspiring emotions, inspiring thoughts, new wisdom, new stories that you can take home with yourself. And we hope that the next time we can welcome you here with your own story to share. Thank you.